Alright everyone, welcome to 3.1, which is the ambiguous case for the law of sines. Now we talked about the law of sines already in the previous video, so now let's talk about what happens if you have the side-side angle possibility, which means you have two sides, one angle. What happens? So on your book, on page 264, there is this nice blue reference thing, I guess, and we've got four different cases where A is acute, and then two where A is obtuse. Now they just chose A, it doesn't matter. If you want to use A, B, or C, it doesn't matter, but they're just going to say, let's make it A every time to make it a little bit easier just to make it continuous for all. So if A is acute and A is less than H and H is the height, then it's not going to come down all the way and connect here. So that means we're not going to get a triangle. So how many triangles do we have? Well, none. Then the next one is, what happens if A equals H? If A is the height, that makes it a right triangle, which means we're only going to have one triangle that we could possibly get. And then the next one is, what happens if A is bigger than B? That means we can only make this one triangle. Alright. And then what happens if A is acute and A is in between H and B, which means it's longer than H, which means it could go this way or it could go that way, which means we have two possible triangles, right? One that's here, one that's over here. What happens if A is obtuse? If A is obtuse and little a, the length of A is less than the length of B, A is not going to reach. That means we have no triangles. And if A is greater than B, then we're going to have one. So really the only one that we have to care about, we're having two possibilities, is if A is in between H and B, which we'll get to later. So what we're going to do is we're going to just look at just a single case first, and then you are going to do some problems with that. So here's the single case that we have. So our single solution means that either A is bigger than B or A is equal to H. So our example, A equals 36 degrees, the length of A is 8, length of B is 5. So if I go back and just look at my reference, A is 36 degrees, which means it is acute, so it's going to be one of these four, and then length of A is bigger than the length of B. So I say, where is A larger than B? Right here, A is larger than B, right? So that means we're going to have one possible solution. So I don't have to worry about doing anything else. So let's do that one right now. Alright, so for the sake of what we're doing, why don't we just draw the triangle here, just to give myself some reference, because I know that pictures for me are the way to go. So that is a very nice 36-degree angle. I'm sure at home if you wanted to try and figure it out, you could. The opposite of A is going to be 8. And then we're going to say B is over here, and that's 5, and C is up here, and we don't know that one. Okay, so we know the length of B, we want to find B. If I try to use C, I'm going to get too much stuff, and I'm not going to be able to use the law of sines, because I have too many unknowns. So let's try using blue for A. So we're going to say length of A over sine 36 is going to equal, let's use green for B, to say that B is going to be 5 over sine of capital B. Alright, now we could go through and try and figure out what sine 36 is, but you know what? I'd rather do that all at the end with one time with my calculator. So I'm going to cross multiply. I'm going to get 8 times sine B is going to equal 5 times sine 36. Okay, now what I want to do is if I want to solve for sine B, divide by 8, divide by 8. So then I should end up with sine B is going to equal 5 sine 36 all over 8. Now I could do all that right now, but how do I get rid of the sine? Inverse sine. Alright, so we're going to say B equals the inverse sine of 5 sine 36 all over 8. Close my parentheses. And remember, 5 sine 36 is really just 5 times sine 36. So now I have all that, and what I'm going to do is just type that in my calculator one time. That way I don't have to worry about getting all sorts of decimals and having to approximate and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go to inverse sine, and let's check my calculator. Is it in degrees? Yes, it is. Okay, very good. So inverse sine of, I got my parentheses 5 times sine 36, close parentheses for 36, divide by 8, close my parentheses for the whole thing, and I get an answer of 21.55 degrees. So we're just say B is about 21.55 21.55 degrees. We got 21.55. All right, so we've got that part. If I know what B is and I know what C is, what I can do to figure out, or I know A, I can figure out C. So I'm going to take 180 minus that one, which was my previous answer. So now I'm at 158, and I'm going to subtract 36 from that to figure out that the measure of C is 122.45 degrees. So I can say C is 122.45. As you can tell, I drew my triangle very accurately because it is an obtuse triangle. So we're not really concerned with that as far as drawing your picture the first time. So what? I know what C is now. I could draw it accurately if I needed to. So now that I know what C is, let's figure out what the length of C is so we can find all the parts of this triangle. I'm going to go back and use sine A again because I don't want to use sine B because B is about 21.55. I don't want to worry too much about that. So it's going to be 8 over sine 36 is going to equal, I don't know what little length C is, lowercase c, but I do know it's going to be sine of 122.45. And we know that's an approximation. That's why I'm using these numbers because they're not an approximation. All right, so cross multiply, and I get 8 sine 122.45 is going to equal C times sine 36. Okay, we could put all that in our calculator right now, but I don't want to do that. I want to divide by sine 36. Divide by sine 36. Now, we could cross multiply, but if you notice what we did, you could also just multiply by sine 122.45 to get the C by itself. So you can cross multiply. If you can find shortcuts, use them, and that's okay. All right, so now I'm going to type all that into my calculator, and let's see what we get for C. Get that? All right, good. 8 sine 122.45. Close my parentheses. I'm going to set that equal, and then I'm going to divide by sine 36. I always like to do those in just different parts just to make sure that I'm doing everything right. And I got 11.49 I'm going to round it to. So C, lowercase c, is 11.49. So we get lowercase c equals 11.49. And we should say about equal to, not exactly. I should also change this one to about equal to that many degrees. So now I have all my answers. B is about 21.55, C is 122.45 about, and length of C is 11.49. There's the ambiguous case where you get one real solution. One other thing that I should mention, let's do our trivia question here. What auto team took Formula One's first back-to-back title in 48 years when Michael Schumacher won the crown in 2001? There's your question. Here is your assignment. Your assignment is find the remaining sides and angles. If I give you A is 22, B is 12, and the angle A is 42 degrees. Good luck.